Roar!
The Skyla Pseudonym by iisaw. Chapter 10 Legends and Prophets. Swiftwing took the wheel after midnight while I scouted back along our course to make sure we weren't being followed. He really wanted to take full watch, and he assured me that his wing wasn't bothering him at all.
Just until Lance and I have finished with our little sideshow, then it's back to bed with you,
I told him.
We will need you whole and healthy in the days to come.
Sideshow, Miss Nightshade?
Yes, we're going to put on a performance for the Baron and his guards,
I said, heading for the companionway to the lower decks.
There may be screaming, just ignore it.
I met Lance in the empty passenger cabin for a last-minute whispered conference. Then I went through the hatch to the cargo hold and worked my way forward until I was near the area where Baron Ironhoof and the Pegasi were being held. I watched them from the darkness for a few minutes. One Pegasus was clumsily and ineffectively trying to loosen the hobbles on the Baron's forelegs. He'd obviously never been held a prisoner before. I spread my wings and gave them a tiny shake to make the feathers rattle together. One. The Baron didn't notice, but the unoccupied Pegasus certainly did. 1. Yes, rattle. Unlike Luna's soft, owlish wings, my own, particularly when influenced by dark magic, were more like a raven's, stiff and loud.
What was that?
The Pegasus peered toward me, but his night vision was ruined by the lamp hanging directly above the group.
I thought I heard... What is that?
I'd brought up as much of a charge of dark magic into my horn as I could manage. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get my eyes glowing and my horn crackling with greenish electricity.
Meat!
I growled low in my throat. I didn't walk so much as creep into the lamplight.
Fresh meat!
Give those ponies credit. None of them screamed. The Baron blanched and tried to scoot himself backwards through the bulkhead, and the guards put themselves between him and me as best as they could.
Release me, demon!
One of the Pegasi demanded.
Let me die fighting! Let me go to the Summerlands doing my duty!
I laughed. A long, low chuckle that burbled up out of my throat like blood from a deep wound.
Foolish little bird thinks it's a fighter. No, just food.
I let my jaw fall open, and thin streams of drool dropped from between my fangs. And that's when stalwart Lance rushed to the rescue. He came through the hatch in the bulkhead opposite me and interposed himself, holding up a flat, circular piece of brass that he carefully kept obscured from the prisoner's direct view.
Get back! The captain said you're not to have them yet!
I hissed and flinched away from the instrument as if it were some sort of amulet that had the power to hold me at bay. 2.
I am hungry!
I whined.
Let me feast!
2. In actuality, it was a simple nocturnal bell from my navigation chest, useless on that world where the stars didn't match its markings. Lance thrust his hoof toward me again, and I growled and backed away.
Not yet! Get back to your cell!
I snarled and noisily retreated until I was hidden in the darkness again. Then I settled in and listened.
You'll be alright,
Lance said.
For now.
You serve those monsters?
One of the Pegasi accused. Lance didn't reply. Neither of us wanted to rely too much on his acting ability, so his few lines were reserved for specific requests.
Don't leave us! That thing might come back!
That was a Baron.
You're a good Earth pony. Why would you help those
Elekornu, the second Pegasus said. The destroyers!
I don't know anything about that, Lance said. I don't know what they are. I never heard of them before they descended on my village and took me.
My guards say they're monsters from another world,
the Baron said. There was a long pause before he spoke again.
Some sort of tribal legends I don't share with outsiders. Free us!
The first Pegasus pleaded urgently.
Let us die on our hoofs! Shut up!
The Baron snapped at him.
How about we don't die at all?
Then to Lance.
You're an Earth pony! You can't let that thing eat us! Help us get away and I'll make you rich!
I don't know.
Come with us! You don't understand!
Lance said, and I don't think he did a very good job of sounding uncertain and afraid.
There's more of them. A lot more. Gold!
The Baron said.
Mares, servants, anything you want! Just help us get away!
Alright, okay, I will.
It won't matter,
the second Pegasus said, almost too quietly for me to hear.
They come scour the world. They will kill all. Shut up or I'll leave you here,
the Baron snapped.
Wait here,
Lance told them.
I'll be back soon.
He left via the hatchway and remained hidden in the darkness, hoping to overhear more of interest. One of the Pegasi started to say something, but the Baron cut him off.
I don't care what idiotic superstitions you believe in. You can keep quiet and obey me, or you can stay and feed that thing. I only obey you because of the destroyers,
the Pegasus hissed back.
But you Stompers have failed us. They've come. How dare you use that word, you flitwit!
Ironhoof snarled. I had just enough time to regret that I couldn't conjure a bag of popcorn to go along with the show before Lance returned with the key to the hobbles and a parachute. He released all of them, despite the Baron's incensed desire to sacrifice his rebellious guards. Lance led them up to the main deck far enough forward that Swiftwing couldn't see them from the quarterdeck. The Baron only realized Lance didn't have his own parachute a second before he jumped.
I can't come with you,
Lance said.
They have my family. Too bad,
the Baron said, swinging his hind legs over the rail.
Good luck.
And he dropped out of sight. The first Pegasus followed him, but the other paused to give Lance one last piece of advice. You will die soon. Die fighting them and your spirit will dwell in the Summerlands. Serve them and you will suffer in Tartarus for eternity.
I'll keep that in mind, thanks,
Lance replied. The Pegasus was gone before he finished speaking. Gee, Lance, I said, slapping a wing across his back in a friendly gesture that made him jump. If you ever give up jousting, you might have a career in the theater. He sort of skittered sideways, not quite enough to shrug off my wing, so I took pity on him and folded it away myself.
What was it all about, Miss Nightshade?
I can't be absolutely certain, I said cheerfully. But all knowledge is power, and we just got a little stronger. Conversely, we've weakened them by providing them with misinformation. Not bad for an hour's work. Go get sleep. We've got a busy day tomorrow.
I took over the wheel from Swiftwing, despite his half-hearted protests, and steered Nebula from her deceptive westerly course onto a south-southeastern heading that would take us back to the Southern Pass. Then I cast the keel spell and slowly and laboriously set as much sail as I could manage by myself. I shut down the engines and opened the cover on the binnacle post to check how much charge we'd used, remembering to close one eye to preserve half my night sight. All 4 power indicators were well below the halfway mark. That meant about 3 days to bring the crystals back up to full again. We'd have to run the engines for half a day to get through the Southern Mountain Pass again, too, so tack on another day for that. Considering the time we'd need for repairs, we wouldn't be fully charged until we crossed the border into the Empire itself. I wasn't pleased by that calculation, but there wasn't anything to be done about it. I spent the rest of the watch mulling over the fruits of our little play while listening to the old familiar creaking of Nebula's rigging. In the morning, Skyla and I revealed our true nature to our new recruits. They took it very well, certainly better than the Baron's Pegasus guards had. Evidently, he'd been right about it being a closely held legend.
Well, dip me in gravy and call me a biscuit,
Star muttered. Daisy gave me one doubtful glance before staring, wide-eyed, at Skyla and gasping,
"You're so beautiful!"
"We're alicorns," Skyla said. "Have you heard the word before?"
"Can't say I have, Captain,"
Star replied.
"So beautiful!"
Daisy's eyes filled with joyful tears. I began to worry that she might pass out.
"We're a blend of all three of the pony tribes,"
I said.
"So you can see why we're naturally more egalitarian than your empire."
"Wait, you got Earth Pony in you?"
Star frowned at me, then pointed a hoof at Skylar.
"But not her, right?"
I silently counted to 10 before going over the facts again. Slowly. The traditional 3 skills required of a professional sailor or aeronaut are the ability to hoof, reef, and steer. That is, they must be able to control sails and lines, reef sails in heavy weather, and steer a ship accurately and safely. The other essential 3 skills, rarely mentioned in daring tales of adventure, are scrape, sand, and paint. I will assume that my readers need no explanation of those activities. I tended to the broken lift stay, with Ow assisting. The rest of the crew, with the exception of Skyla and Swiftwing, spent their day with scrapers, sandpaper, and paintbrushes.
"Ah, the thrilling life of a pirate! Invigorating, isn't it, Miss Ow?"
I said, intentionally loud enough to be heard on deck.
"This one can barely contain an inappropriate expression of excitement, Miss Nightshade,"
she replied in a deadpan voice as she helped roll my splice smooth with her magic. We excused Cream Puff early so that he could prepare supper for the crew. Ow, Filigree, Skyla and I settled in next to the engines and began feeding them manna. The rest of the crew kept on scraping. After supper, I overheard a very interesting conversation. Daisy, who had been given special dispensation to keep her non-pirate name, shyly approached Filigree and said, "May I ask you something?" Filigree smiled at her.
"Of course, you can ask me anything you'd like."
"I was wondering why you don't sing as you charge the crystals. My overseer would have beaten me if I had forgotten to sing."
Just when I thought I couldn't despise that Celestia-forsaken world anymore.
"That's horrible,"
Filigree gasped.
"They forced you to sing for them?"
"Oh no, not for them, for the crystals."
What?"
I decided it was time to butt in.
"You sing to the crystals as you charge them?"
Daisy jumped and squeaked when I spoke to her.
"Oh, Miss Nightshade, you startled me. Sorry, now what about the singing?" "Well, it's what we do. All the unicorns, I mean. We are taught the song when we are very young. Would you sing it for me, please?" "Yes, ma'am,"
she said and walked away from me. I was nonplussed for a second and then realized she was heading for the forward starboard engine. She settled in next to the open access hatch and began to sing. It was a slow, gentle tune, hardly more complex than an exercise practicing scales, really. The words were just nonsense syllables. Analare, abafe. It was in common time, all quarter notes, something that would be boring for any pony but a beginning student of music. But it was pleasant and soothing. After the first few measures, Daisy lit her horn and began to feed mana into the engine crystals. The flow of her magic was as smooth as silk. I was impressed. I hadn't previously taken episomatic factors into account when dealing with power crystals. Back home, charging crystals was a simple matter of power and time. Other elements had so little effect as to be easily discounted. But on that low magic world, any slight advantage or improvement in the process, like a musical meditation technique, would make a significant difference.
Thank you, Daisy,
I said.
You can stop now.
She let her magic fade, but kept singing for a few more measures afterwards.
Was that alright, Miss Nightshade? I can keep going for as long as you'd like. We'll put you on charging duty on our next watch. Go ahead and get some rest now.
I'll walk with you, Filigree volunteered.
You might need help hanging your hammock.
An hour later, Filigree hadn't returned to the main deck, and I heard soft notes of Daisy's song floating up from the crew quarters, in a duet. Oh, fickle stallions, forgetting his devotion to his pirate princess so soon? Well, Daisy was quite a pretty little thing. Thinking of pretty little things, 3, I made Swiftwing return to his bunk in the second mate's cabin and cast another series of healing spells on his wing. 3. Such an observation was in no way disloyal. Luna and I have an understanding. Appreciation of the visual aspects of other ponies was completely acceptable. And since we were both accomplished shapeshifters, mental notes reserved for later reference were not uncommon. I had about 4 hours before I went on watch, and it would have been wise to get some sleep before then, but Daisy's little revelation had gotten me thinking. I spent those hours disassembling the Baron's broken gun and carefully examined each part of it. What I found was well worth losing sleep for. I won't bother to go into details of the chemosamic interactions in regards of metallic contacts involved in the mana flow mechanisms, 4. Suffice it to say that the second most suitable material for conduct points is gold, and even that corruption-resistant metal degrades over time and wastes a measurable amount of mana with each connection or disconnection. 4. Some pony has written "Oh, thank Celestia" in the margin of my manuscript, and the quill work looks suspiciously like Rainbow Dash's. This is what comes of asking one's friends to act as pre-readers. The most desirable metal, one that neither degrades nor wastes mana, is an alloy known as orichalcum. Any pony who is neither a magical historian nor a somic material specialist can be forgiven for not recognizing the name. The secret of its making was lost during the exodus to Equestria before the 3 tribes united. Even Star Swirl was unable to recreate it. It might seem like a trivial task to experiment with proportions and temperature until the metal was reproduced, but there was another factor that eluded even the most persistent alchemist. It was some sort of magic, of course, but that left nearly limitless possibilities to be explored. In the vaults beneath Canterlot, there is a strategic reserve of the alloy, amounting to a little less than 5 pounds. It's worth somewhere upward of 300 million bits. The contact points in the gun were solid chunks of orichalcum. Nearly 2 ounces by my rough estimate. When I dragged the other guns out of the arms locker, I confirmed that the Baron's weapon was not an anomaly. All of them used solid orichalcum contact points, and the larger ones had the delicate parts of their waveguides made of the stuff. The amount of the metal aboard Nebula could have bought a dozen Canterlot mansions. After sharing out the profit back home, every pony aboard would be remarkably wealthy. All we had to do was sneak into the heart of a hostile empire, find and steal some ridiculously valuable gems without having access to high-level magic, and get away without being shot to pieces. Simple.